You're now listening to the Tax Smart REI podcast, the number one tax podcast for real estate investors. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Tax Smart REI podcast. Today we're joined with Scott Moore, CEO and founder of Lamasu Leads, and is also a host of Leads to Deals. He helps investors find motivated sellers to acquire properties from. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all of that in just one moment. Most landlords are closer to achieving their financial goals than they realize. They are just a few moves away from meeting their cash flow goals and finally achieving financial freedom. Introducing Property Llama, the game-changing tool designed to help you unlock hidden opportunities in your real estate investments using the equity you've already built up in your portfolio. Property Llama is an online investment platform built by real estate investors for real estate investors, and their user-friendly dashboard gives you a crystal clear picture of your entire portfolio, and their team of real estate experts is there to help you plan the moves you need to make to hit your goals faster. With Property Llama, you can track and benchmark your investment's performance, model what-if scenarios to make smarter decisions, and work with their team of real estate investment professionals to discover new investment opportunities and accelerate your portfolio. When you sign up at propertyllama.com/taxsmart, you receive a free personalized one-on-one portfolio review with one of their real estate investment experts. Again, visit www.propertyllama.com/taxsmart to get started today. That's it for now. We'll dive right into today's episode. And we're back. So Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Would you be able to give our listeners a little bit of an overview of your background and how you got involved with real estate?
Yeah, so number one, I appreciate, thank you for having me on here, Thomas. I'm a big fan of REI, but I'm not married to it, which I think hopefully can give a perspective that's a little bit more from the outsiders. I made all my money from different marketing companies, marketing channels, and other verticals, mainly in the legal profession, all not being a lawyer, but just feeding attorneys. And I found out about your guys' vertical about 4.5 years ago. And so I just took everything that I learned in these other industries where I'd made a boatload of money and then started applying some of those principles here into the REI space. And so literally some guy that I had given money to, I say some guy, is now a really dear friend, but I had always like funded deals and he had always come and borrowed some capital and I would either take an equity interest or, be paid back, remunerated really handsomely. And one day when I was looking for a new campaign, he was like, "Hey man, you should try this." And he broke it down to me and I said, "I really feel like this is disruptable." And so I looked at it from wholesaling and single family investing. And now we also do some self storage as well.
Nice. So I know the biggest question on people's minds, everybody's kind of finding it hard to find deals today. Interest rates are a bit higher, even though the Fed said they're going to bring them down. They haven't come down yet. But people are finding it hard for people to find deals that pencil out. So how do you help your clients dominate in any economy?
Yeah, so I think the key word is domination, right? Probably you don't need me to be a hobbyist in this space, but if you're one of those people who are trying to pivot from hobbyist and or go full time, you want to have that dominating mindset. And dominating mindset really doesn't mean you find one horse and you just go all the way to the end. I think you need multiple horses, and those horses are marketing channels. And so I think having multiple marketing channels that you kind of knock out as pins on a bowling alley. Like, okay, let me set up my cold outbound. Let's get that dialed in. Let's get to that where it's making a couple 100,000 or X amount of deals a month or quarter, whatever your goal is. And now let's move into mail. Okay, now we got that locked in and that's stabilized. Okay, now let's run into PPC. Now that's it. Now let's go into PPL. All right, now let's go into TV. And so I have an experience with multiple marketing channels. The one that I found to be the most robust and also have a low barrier of entry is the cold outbound marketing. And so I'm sitting in my office right now, which is 12,000 square feet of just phone assassins, where our primary vertical that we dominate or help our customers dominate is one of their many marketing channels, which is cold outbound marketing.
All right. So you're helping investors instead of going through like a wholesaler per se, or perhaps a real estate agent, you're going direct to the seller here, finding motivated sellers that investors can ultimately acquire properties from.
Yeah, my ideal client and most of my clients are investors who have looked to cut out wholesalers. And they're like, "Hey, listen, wholesalers, their margins, their deals have gotten even crazier the past year and a half. I know we have sales guys. I know we have the talent. I know I can have a more educated conversation with every seller out there than these wholesalers are having. So I want to cut them out. What does that look like, Scott?" And so they'll come to me and we'll talk about if they have sales guys or whatever. But effectively, I provide leads to the top wholesalers in the industry and to the top investors in the industry who want to be direct to seller with a consistent, high volume, high quality lead flow from this outbound channel, which should be one of the multiple marketing channels that you have if you want to quote unquote dominate.
Right. And through this specific channel, right? Like how much more, this might be like a broad question, but like how much more profitable is it for an investor to go direct to the seller than it would be per se to go through an agent or go through a wholesaler, right? If we're trying to cut these types of, trying to cut those out and go direct to the seller, what does that look like?
So in theory, it should be more profitable, but you can still get really profitable deals on market. I think what it happens is putting your own fate in your own hand, because you're not waiting for somebody to bring you a deal. You're not waiting for an agent to call you up. You need consistency and volume. And one of the things about on market is while it gives you a great universe of deals, they're not always as competitive as they should. And there's obviously, when I'm being competitive in pricing, but the competition of people fighting for that deal and willing to bid you up is astronomical. And so I think the whole concept should be is that's also a marketing channel. On market is a marketing channel. Having good broker relationships is a marketing channel. But being over here where you can source your own reduces competition and typically increases spread while providing the consistency where you create your own fate and you're not waiting for fate to come to your door.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And when you're finding these motivated seller leads, are you closing them on behalf of investors, or like are you bringing them up to the point where the investors are getting on the call and closing them themselves? How does that work for investors?
So really great question. So it's a pretty long process to go from data in a computer to motivated seller wanting to have somebody come out to their house. And so we handle that whole front of that process, from geographical targeting to motivation flag targeting to pulling the data to skipping the data to having that initial conversation to about a 14 to 15 minute qualified phone conversation to now handing that highly motivated lead over to that investor and saying, hey, Barbara Smith wants a call back at 2 o'clock today, and she's willing to let you guys come out to the house to view the property. Somewhere in that line. So once it gets all the way up to, let's say, the 20-yard line, and now it's time for them to take that red zone sprint, that's when the investor or the wholesaler takes that lead over so they can negotiate the actual offer on the price. I'm finding the person who is open, willing, and wanting to hear an offer that's reasonable.
Yeah, that's powerful because I know, just from our own process here at the CPA firm, generating a lead, qualifying that lead through a setter, and then getting that lead on, onto a call with someone who's ultimately going to close the deal is a large process in and of itself. So it sounds like here you're cutting all that out. You're jumping right in saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, right? You're getting on calls with highly qualified leads who are like pretty much ready for you to close. You just have to take it from here.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When I came into your industry, what I realized that most investors and wholesalers, and even I was expected to accept, because I didn't know any different, but I was expected to accept that a cold call lead was going to be like garbage. Like I was going to have to fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. And I was just like, well, why can't you guys qualify more before I ever get to it? Like, I'll even pay more. Like, I don't want to go through 80 people to get to the one person who actually wants me to come out to the property to make an offer or send a closer out to the property. I want you guys to really synthesize this conversation and then give me somebody who actually wants to talk to me, because this industry is riddled with what I call heartbeat in a home leads. That person has a heartbeat. They have a home. Here, pay me money for this. And I'm like, I wouldn't pay myself money for this. And so this whole call center behind me didn't happen because I wanted to start a call center, because I wanted to do it for myself. And then a buddy of mine heard, and then another guy heard, and they were like, oh, can I get cold callers? And that's when the light bulb hit, and they were like, oh, everybody's having this problem. Okay. Yeah. All right. So now that's how that came from, because it's more than just somebody who is saying I'm interested. It's somebody who like truly qualifies to take my time or my closer's time.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense because like this whole process that you're handling is tremendously valuable. That's for sure. What markets are you currently serving? I know you handle the geographical targeting and all of that. What markets do you serve?
I think it would probably be best suited. What markets am I not in? And so we're in 60 some markets nationwide. And I consider a market like all of Central Florida, South Florida, Jacksonville. And so Florida is like broken into 4 markets. So now there's 56 some other markets that we do nationwide. Like we don't do anything. I'm looking at a big global map: Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Washington State. I currently don't do anything in. There's some peculiar states out there I don't, or the outbound channel doesn't perform as well. But the reality is, I'd say 98% of every real estate market that matters, it's accessible to us.
Nice. That's good because I know markets like Florida, Texas, mostly in the Southeast, Midwest, those markets like on fire right now. A lot of people are looking. So I know you mentioned before that you do deal with a bunch of different types of properties. What types of properties are you typically targeting with these outbound leads?
Yeah, and so to piggyback off what you said about markets, so we're in everywhere from Arizona, LA, which San Diego, which is like the top tier, to all the way into Arkansas and Alabama. And so I really get to see the whole depth of the entire industry. And It's almost like I use this analogy a lot when I'm training people about what we have access to. It's almost like if you've ever seen that candle factory thing at the mall, like you can smell it before you actually get there. That's how I feel about market trends. We did 46 million outbound dials last year. And so, like, I'm just aggregating so much data because I see consumer sentiment. And so primarily we're in single family asset classes. That's our primary driver that we're looking for. But that conversation and that seller avatar is so different when you're calling a $30,000 home in Detroit or a $1.6 million home in Los Angeles. And so we really are playing both sides of the coin and getting a lot of feedback from what sellers are willing to accept. And I've watched it change so much in the past few years. So it really is quite interesting to be able to help guide my investors in every market. Like, hey, your strategy is different in Louisiana than it is in Phoenix. And here's what we have to do differently.
Got it. No, that makes sense, right? Because they have different buyers in different markets, at different like levels of properties, if you will.
Yeah.
Hey, are you tired of working with generalist CPAs that tell you can't use the real estate professional status, the short-term rental loophole, or cost segregation studies, or worse, have no idea what these things are? If so, it's time to elevate your game and work with a CPA firm that gets it. Here at Whole CPA, we've worked with thousands of investors, helping them save millions of dollars in taxes through proactive tax strategy and planning, tax preparation, and outsourced accounting solutions. So if you're ready to elevate your game, make tax filing painless, and save thousands of dollars in taxes, what are you waiting for? Just head on over to www.therealestatecpa.com/podcast to request an initial consultation today. We are accepting clients for the 2023 and 2024 tax years, so if you're looking to make a change, you have nothing to lose. Again, you can request an initial consultation by visiting www.therealestatecpa.com/podcast. We look forward to hearing from you and learning more about your situation and how we can help. But for now, we'll dive right back into today's episode. When it comes to actually, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce or anything
No,
like that.
I'm completely naked with this all, man, because I ain't going to be here for a long time. Let's make an impact and roll.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So can you take us a little bit through the process of how you find these leads, how you kind of just what it looks like behind the scenes before it gets to the investors ultimately and close it?
Yeah. So it really is like a red carpet service with like little ropes on the side. And I do that is because most investors aren't good at marketing ever, right? They're really good at projections and rehabs and, maybe managing a crew, but I really have to make this as silver platter as possible. And so, part of the process would be anybody could replicate, but that we do is once they give us a geographical targeting and their ideal buy box, then I say, okay, so your ideal buy box is a home between 1950 to 2010, 3-bedroom, 1,400 square, whatever their ideal buy box is. And then I say, I'm going to go shopping for you. Let me grab all the buy box matching records in your geographical targeting. And then I overlay on top of those known motivators. And so I know, because I have so much aggregate data, I know really right now what's working. Okay, pre-foreclosure in this market. Okay, divorce, vacancy, absentee out of state, tired landlord, all these different motivator flags that we have. And so I take their data request, I find what is very likely to be a motivated seller, and then I do the hard work, which is called thousands and thousands of numbers a day, nonstop, relentless, with heavily trained phone assassins to cull through that data for that 1 out of 300 and some answers that says, yes, I am qualified and I want to sell. So we're putting in massive amounts of calls to highly targeted data, and then the investor then takes it after we obviously get that all set up.
Then that makes a ton of sense. I know you mentioned targeting, motivated seller targeting. Is there a number one reason today in today's market why people are looking to sell, or a predominant one that stands out?
No, age is really a big factor. And so what ends up happening in a shrinking economy like now, where it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? You have people that the kids are out of the house now. The house is 2-story, and now their health says they need to be in a 1-story house. And so the ideal avatar is somebody who has enough equity where they can buy their next house cash and they can still walk away with something. So they're looking to downsize. They're looking to go into a rancher. They're looking to go into a senior facility or whatever it may be, but they're looking to downsize and strip some equity out, and or they don't have the capacity or mental wherewithal to handle a rehab. And so you'll get a lot of people who are like, yeah, my husband, I don't want him climbing ladders anymore. And the house is really busted. And we talked to a realtor, and the realtor said, if we wanted to get this big number, because the realtor doesn't give them an alternate option. The realtor comes in and says, hey, your house is ugly and I can get you 250 as you deserve, but you're going to have to spend 30,000. And they then walk away because they're like, I don't have 30,000 to save, but I have all this trapped in equity. And so then they're able to come to us or come to one of our investors, and they're like, hey, listen, I'll let it go if you can offer me the certainty and I don't have to do these repairs. And so I see that as a common trend line, a certain age dynamic. Other than that, we just look for all the distress factors like lights shut off, water shut off, the eviction, anything that's happening in somebody's house where I can call them and say, we don't say it like this, but we think you have a problem. Would this be a solution to get equity out of your property and move you into a different place? So that's what we're looking for.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. With foreclosures, have you seen like an uptick in those over recent months or due to like, or maybe last few years due to interest rates increasing by any chance?
I haven't seen it yet, except on the paper. Like I read it everywhere and it says it's impacting. I really haven't seen it at all right now. What I've seen, actually, probably to the contrary, which that's why I say I think I smell it before everybody else does. But I've actually started to see a softening up that's made this much more enjoyable in the last 90 days than it was the last 6 to 8 months. In my head, I'm rationalizing it as okay, everybody who was waiting for the rate drops to come, because everybody's been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's just never came. I think there's a certain cohort of the population now who's like, okay, it's not going to come. So I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and I'm going to have to move because my job requires me to, because my family, because my downsides, because I can't afford this mortgage anymore. And now there's this subset of population where a year ago when we called them, they say, hey, listen, I really want to move, but I need to wait for the rates to come down so that way I can afford a new place. We're just accepting it and now moving.
Right, right. Okay. That's good to hear because I hear a lot of the chatter going on, but I have not seen anything to prove that out. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's not really there or may not be really there. So like I know you mentioned wholesalers, investors are your primary target. Like what would an investor, we have a lot of investors listen to the show. What would an investor need to, I guess, be ready for a service like yours? Do they need a team? Or are they just buying one or two properties? Like what type of machine do they need to have behind them before they're ready for a service like this?
Yeah. So most investors wouldn't have the patience. They're trapped almost. They wouldn't have the patience to deal with like a VA service. Like they're not going to pay somebody in the Philippines to do something and it'd be subpar, sub quality. They're just not going to. They'll never be successful with it. On the inverse side, is some of them don't have the patience to build out a sales guy, et cetera. So I'm really for those guys who are already established. I could make a lot more money if I had sold a lot to people who are doing a little, but I really enjoy my avatar who are like successful investors. So I would say that if you're already an investor that's going direct to seller in any marketing channel, that means you have a CRM. That means you have at least an appointment scheduling protocol in your office and you having some level of oversight because you must be getting leads from TV or even on market deals where you're calling the realtor and negotiating. So I would say you at least need a sales guy or gal in your office and a CRM, and I'm willing to hold their hands while they go through some level of education tax, because if you've never had a marketing channel and you all of a sudden step into this, it's a machine, as you said, you're going to pay a bit of a tax on your KPIs until you get the ball rolling. And we do training for people, et cetera. But I like to see more established guys who are already buying something direct to seller, and then boom, I can get them to the next level.
Got it. So this wouldn't necessarily be for that mom and pop investor who's just buying one or two properties per year. This is for somebody who's trying to seriously ramp up a portfolio.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. For this level of action. Yeah.
How many properties would you say your typical client is maybe acquiring on a monthly or a yearly basis?
On the investor side, we have some whales, but I would say 10 to 35 a month on the investor side. And I have some wholesalers that are the 20, 25, 30s in between all the marketing channels, not just with me. But the wholesalers then are feeding the mom and pop guys. So, but everybody's like, I almost consider it like a casino table in Vegas, not for the gambling aspect, but because of it's a players club. There's a high limit table. And so most of my guys are at a certain limit in the single family space.
Got it. So it sounds like if you're maybe a newer investor, maybe you're not looking to scale something crazy, you'd be better off maybe working with a wholesaler, getting those kind of deals from the wholesaler. But then when you're serious about, ramping things up, scaling your business, you have your team built out, you have a machine behind you to do the renovations, you have a sales rep in your office, that's when it's time to look at something like this.
It is. And I would tell everybody, listen, there's a really famous website called investorlift.com. I don't get any money from it, but even I dispo my deals there that we don't take down for ourselves. And that's a great, if you're looking for deals, just go there, register. There's 1,000 wholesalers on there trying to sling their latest deal for 15,000 too much. But there's still deals on there for sure, because that's how we move our deals. But once you start doing a couple of deals a month through them and you want to now be direct and cut out that wholesaler fee and or have that consistency of everything goes to you, because I have a lot of investors who come to me, Tom, they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this. And then the ones that I don't want, I'm a wholesale. So now all of a sudden they start their own wholesaling arm in their office, and that's paying for their marketing channel for this other product, which is now, and so now they have this like really cool free way to have marketing done and stabilize their portfolio growth.
In regards to like cost, like are you charging per lead? Is it like a comprehensive package? Like if someone's considering this and they're saying, look, my team's built out, I have a sales rep in my office, so I'm ready to do this, or perhaps maybe they want to ramp up to something like this, just what would they expect?
It depends, but I would say like the minimum is like 5,500 a month, and I have guys that are in the 40s. So it just depends on the level of deal flow that you want, and also the market, because you'll have a lot of people who understand their numbers. A cost per deal in a market like Phoenix could be every bit of $15,000 or higher. And so you can't hire me and expect to pay me 5K and pull out 3 deals. That's not how it works. Actually, you're going to have to hire me at a bigger package, because your cost per deal is going to be that $10,000 to $20,000. And so every market's different. Like Alabama, the more southern markets, it's a couple of $1,000s cost per deal. So you just know, really, no matter what marketing channel, I should spend about $4,000 to $7,000 for a deal in Central Florida consistently. Sure, you can get a deal for $500. But when you want to start doing volume, I have to spend between 4 to 7 for every single deal. And then you put it into your calculator and you rehab. Okay, I'm gonna make 86,000. Great. I just paid 5,500 for an 86,000, or whatever it may be, whatever your repair costs.
Right. So they have to bake that into their acquisition and make sure that it all makes sense. This is very interesting. Do you work with flippers by any chance, or is that kind of baked into that investor bucket?
It is. And what's weird is very few of my customers, if not all of my investors, I shouldn't say, the overwhelming majority of my investors are flippers and aren't buy and hold.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I could see where this, if you have that flipping engine just going, just this could be massive. I think it's also be big for people who use the BRRRR strategy. So buy, rent, refinance, repeat.
Yes.
You buy a property, you push the value up, and if you're, we have a partner here at our firm who built a $30 million portfolio in 10 years doing that. And I can only imagine if you threw something like this on top of that engine, there's like what the results could be. It could be massive.
Yeah, what's really interesting, I love watching people do, is sometimes you'll get leads where it just doesn't work for a flip, right? And then my investors or the wholesalers, they'll just say, okay, well, now I've mastered creative. And so like they're just cherry picking these deals that otherwise don't work for a flip, but the customer's willing to let it go for a couple of grand down, and you take over the note. And so that's a whole different conversation. But there's a lot of people out there that know how to do structure creative deals or subject to deals. And so it's a cool way to, like, for free, if you will, because you was otherwise going to throw that lead away. But now, hey, they just need $4,000 and a U-Haul fee, and you can take over the note, and now you're putting a renter in it. And so that's how I see people buying and hold, is because they just get these free deals, if you will, from creative on non-target investor customers that raise their hand.
That makes a lot of sense. So when it comes down to sales, I know this is a big sales thing. Obviously, clients need to learn how to sell. I know you mentioned you do some training for them. What would be, maybe 2 or 3 sales tips you give to one of your clients who are getting these motivated seller leads?
I'm going to tailor this as if the investor has somebody else doing it for them. And so one of my golden rules is people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. And so if you're going to have somebody call in the leads that you paid for, that you busted your ass and you're 50 some years old, or it doesn't matter how old you are, but you busted your ass your whole life and you got this sailed up and you just hired a sales guy and you just paid for a marketing company, for God's sakes, no matter how good they say they are, pay attention to what they're doing, because they will never treat the lead as good as you would, because they didn't pay for it. Matter of fact, you're paying them to call the lead that you paid for. And so oversight is everything. You don't have to be a helicopter parent, and that's not what I'm saying. But if you're going to be successful in this, you're going to let them know that at any moment I will drop into a call, I will listen to a call, I will pull your KPIs, etc. Because if you have a quality lead, it's literally a numbers game. It's 1 out of 15. Okay, great. So now you've gone 16. What's broken in this process? Let's go back and listen into this together. So that would be, I know it's not a sales strategy, but for your guys that you're going to hire to do your sales strategy. And then the other part I think that a lot of people struggle with this business is really just there's only but so many rebuttals that you're going to get. So write them out. You'll have your objections, and so many objections. You'll have your rebuttals. It's fairly simple, but so many people don't stick to them. And then a really small last thing is people love to be order takers in this industry instead of closers. And an order taker at the end of the consultation says, okay, did you have any questions? No, not really. Okay, great. Let me know tomorrow. Let me know the next day. Hey, let me send you my contract. And then you just sign it, versus actually engaging them. Okay, great. Seems like we're a perfect fit for you. Here's what I'm going to do now. The offer is X amount of dollars, and then asking for the business today. I've never seen an industry that doesn't ask for business today as much as I have inside this vertical so far, where people are expecting people to buy versus closing them on doing the transaction today by just simply asking for their business.
No, everything you just said there kind of hits home across sales from my experience in general, right? It's really great advice. It sounds like you would say it makes sense to probably have a sales script, have your objections ready to go, make sure your salesperson is trained on that script, make sure they're following the script by holding them accountable and making sure they close. I mean, that's some good advice. Do you help your clients put that in place, or is that something that they need to have ready to go?
Yeah, we have a whole training portal that we offer. I really should. I'd make more money. So many people come and say, Scott, you make more money by coaching this stuff than doing this. I just don't want to go stand in front of crowds. I don't want to travel. I love my kids. I love my house. I love everything. At this juncture, I don't want to go be a guru. But we have a great training platform that everybody gets access to because I want them to be successful. The higher the ROI is, the higher they spend with me. And so that's how I'm profitable. But these sales fundamentals that you're talking about, that we're talking about, they're evergreen. So once you master them here, you master them everywhere, whether it be having somebody fill out applications for your rentals, whether it be a commercial project. So having these processes down can benefit you so much in the REI world. But when I first got into this space, what blew my mind is I said, okay, before I actually make a commitment, I'm going to go fill out forms on various websites. Need to sell my house. I want to sell my house. I'm just typing in all these keywords. Tom, you couldn't believe how many people just never called me back. And then how many people called me back 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later. I couldn't believe how the industry treated their leads. And I said, okay, this is a problem that I can come in and attempt to dominate on, which is the point of the call.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I know you mentioned that I think you have a podcast. Do you have a podcast?
Yeah, the Leads to Deals podcast.
What do you normally cover on that show?
So we talk about everything from leads to deals. And I always say everything we talk about leads to deals. I was a young man where sales changed my life. Like absolutely at 21 years old, got my first high ticket sales job. And I stayed in and around that industry for 20 some years. And it turned me into the man that I am today with the assets and wealth and everything that I have today and the opportunity to provide for almost 200 people that I have today. And I'm a big fan of the art of communication and how you can manifest around you with the power of words the desired outcome you want in almost any conversation you have with a seller or a buyer of any industry.
Awesome. That podcast, it's available. I just have it pulled up in front of me right now. It's on Spotify. I have to imagine it's on Apple and all
everywhere. Yep.
Everybody out there, you're gonna have to go check that out. Question I meant to ask you, which slipped my mind just before, was: do you invest yourself in real estate?
Yeah, so we have a great portfolio. Me and my business partner. I teased for like a first year. I was like, dude, I couldn't even tell you what a cap rate was. Like my thing was, in everybody's ideal situation, you would want to have a CMO or hire a company like myself because I'm like the CMO, but I'm not the underwriter. I can't use my expertise on that because that's not my expertise. My expertise is on sales psychology, et cetera. But as of now, we're really heavy. And this year, in the past like year or so, we've really gone heavy on pad split. So pad split's been really good for us in the Florida market. Are you aware what pad split is?
I am not.
Have you ever heard of it before at all? No?
I've not heard of it, actually.
So some of our Airbnbs were starting to tank. So we have 40 some residential properties in the state of Florida. So like we're good. And we have some self-storage facilities. But our Airbnbs were tanking in revenue pretty much really in the past, like I say, 9 months or so. And so we started partnering up with a firm called Pad Split. Pad Split allows us to go in there and maybe expand the kitchen or knock down the wall and the washer and dryer and rearrange it where we'll have 4 or 5 tenants in individual rooms on the month-to-month basis. So we're able to get so much more than we could as a rental, so much more than we could as an Airbnb because we have a multitude of month-to-month tenants and every room is their own private room and they have little numbers on the room. So to me, it looks like a 4-door hotel or a 5-door hotel, but they have their community space there. And it's really helped us drive additional revenue that may not have been there previously.
That's interesting you mentioned that because we have a lot of investors who listen to the show invest in short-term rentals. Do you have an idea of maybe why the revenue dropped, why you've seen that drop over the last few months?
Just bookings went down. And I would like to think some of it's competition. I think some of it also is there's a bit of a dullness to Airbnb, I think, to some degree in the American psychology nowadays. I think enough people have had bad experiences. I know I've had great and bad ones, but man, we got some super tricked out houses. And we just started seeing the month-to-month decline. And I can't put my finger on exactly why the decline was, but we had already invested into those properties. So now it made it like the ultimate short-term rental. You have your own room in a cool house with a putt-putt green in the back type place. And so far it's been really great being able to pivot those assets.
Yeah, for the listeners listening out there, I hope that bit's insightful. It seems like another way that you can make use of your short-term rentals by renting it out by the room and using a platform like PadSplit. Yeah, I know a lot of our listeners have invested in short-term rentals, continue to invest in short-term rentals. So I just found that interesting,
Yeah.
interesting tidbit there. What else should we know? I know we discussed a lot. What else should we know about dominating any industry, motivated seller leads that we have not discussed?
Yeah, I think that's just to give people the confidence that it's really not as hard as that you would expect, and that if you are an investor and you're buying on market and you're harassing and chasing realtors down and you're actually putting in any level of work to acquire the deals, you really have the capacity inherently to go direct to seller. It's just a matter of what level of communication are you going to have? What method of communication? Are you going to send out pieces of mail? Are you going to send out text messages, phone calls? Are you going to run PPC? And the amount of people that are overpaying retail investor properties on market is atrocious. Like every time we can't get a buyer on our end, let's say we're trying to sell a property to our investor network for 200. We're like, okay, can't get on there. Everybody's like 140, 150. Like we're just completely off the mark. We put it on the MLS and boom, gone. And it's like, okay, so these guys over here are just paying way too much. And so some properties, we'll see it immediately. We're like, dude, let's not even disrespect our partners. Let's just go ahead and put it on the MLS. So if you're buying off the MLS, you probably have enough baked into those costs to be able to afford to go through the pain of setting up your own little sales team and start marketing on your own to get back that money that you're over, quote unquote, overpaying for.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm not surprised to hear that things are going overpriced on the MLS. But one thing I'd say is that as we're talking here, it made me realize the importance of having a system and having a thing set up the right way. Because I think a lot of people underestimate what goes into running a call center like that. What goes into how many cold calls you have to make, how many people you have to train, if you're going to hire them from the Philippines, that managing that entire process. Or sometimes it's better off to delegate or to find a company like yours who can take over this aspect of your business so you can stay focused on other parts of your business, which I guess what I'm trying to say is the problem you solve is massive. And I just don't think that people understand how massive it is, because I know how hard it is. I used to do cold calls for recruiting, right? And I don't know how many cold calls I had to do to find one person, right? If you're doing all of that, you're cutting out that entire process, just getting the investor on the call or the wholesaler or the flipper on the call with that seller. I mean, it's massive.
And it's the mental sanity. If you're an investor and you're trying to like cold outreach yourself, you're going to get kicked in the face with so many no's that by the time you get that yes, you're spent, you're exhausted, you're too burnt to actually have a quality conversation about that seller's needs and finding their needs and addressing their needs and building rapport. And so that's the advantage is, like I said, it can take upwards of 350 answers. Forget how many dials it takes to get to an answer, but it can take up to 350 hellos to find the one person. And some of those are, screw you, why are you calling me? Wrong person. She don't live here no more. No, I'd sell for $1 million. Of course I'd sell. So you're going through all these relentless conversations to get to that one person where Barbara Smith's like, yeah, I've been thinking about selling. Yeah, but I couldn't because of this, this, and this. And yeah. And they're good people and they have a real problem and you guys have a real solution. So outsourcing that so you can focus on your core expertise, which is properly comping a deal. All you investors out there, you have no clue how bad these wholesalers are. The average wholesaler kicks out 60 to 70% of their deals. So that means that they are lying to a seller 7 out of 10 times. 7 contracts out of 10 that they sign and say, hey, we're going to buy your house, they cancel on. You get to be the investor who actually knows the numbers and can make a price that actually matters work. It's worth so much in the marketplace to go to somebody's house and be like, ma'am, you see the name on the truck. This is my company. I'm actually the buyer. Those wholesalers find the deals and sell them to me. And that you're working directly with me. It's so valuable in today's market.
For sure, 100%. If our listeners wanted to jump into something like this, wanted to learn more perhaps about something like this, they want to explore this further, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but if you're on Instagram at Lamassu Leads, LAMASSU Leads, that's a great way for you to see what we're doing behind the scenes for our investors. And you just get to peer into a 12,000 square foot call center, right? Like it's kind of cool and crazy around here. And the other part is just going to lamassuleads.com and then somebody can just fill out a form. And I'm really, really open about what we do and how we do it. And I went somebody's business for a long time, not the wrong time. And so we turn down more people than we say yes to, but I can also give you a pathway on how to eventually get to me, because I don't need somebody to crash and burn. We already have a wait list as it sits right now. So I think that if somebody has questions, it'd be my honor to share with you what I think I would do in your market with whatever your budget is.
We're going to drop that into the show notes for everybody who is listening. If you do want to check that out, I know I'm going to give a follow on Instagram. I get the call center right behind him. It looks so cool. So thanks again, Scott, for coming on. Is any final words you want to leave our audience with before we wrap up?
Building generational wealth, not through real estate, but through sales skills first, is what led me here to you guys. And so I can't emphasize enough that there's so many great investors out there that are doing well. But if they also took the same amount of time to go grab a couple of sales books or study a couple of sales guys out there, what they would do to grow, because ultimately it's still sales, no matter what it is that you're doing. So I'd like to see more sales skills in the REI space. I think it would clean it up. And I think that there'd be a lot less disappointed sellers out there, because a lot of people are kind of getting screwed, and we need some more white knight investors stepping into the marketplace, bullying out the wholesalers and offering an off-market solution.
Great answer. And this is the last question I have, then we'll definitely wrap it up. You mentioned sales education. What's your number one sales book? Would you recommend?
Got lots of them. So I found all of my. I'm old school. I'm an old guy. I'm in my 40s, but I loved everything Zig Ziglar. And man, I mastered every. See You at the Top. I'd say anything by Zig Ziglar. I also did Tom Hopkins. We're really, really big on the straight line technique from Jordan Belfort. Really, really big on the straight line technique, because that's got a lot of the sales fundamentals there. But I think anything that you find that's just a sales book will teach you a methodology, and you pick up what fits for you, and you move on from there. But if you don't have a concept to follow, you're just going to be word salad every time you get on the phone, and you're never going to be able to structure something that you can improve, because you'll never do anything with consistency.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that's about it for today. Thanks for joining us. Great stuff. We're going to put all that in the show notes. And thanks again for joining us.
Dude, I thank you for having me on, brother. Have a good one.